let's get started, shall we? Oh, wrong one. Here we go. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to my classroom. Though we aren't in the classroom right at this moment. Also, surprise! I do realize that the expected etiquette of new model reveals is to reveal them gradually, starting from the toes and gradually revealing up. But, I deigned not to do that because some people may not even realize who I am. Especially with the new look, which is quite different from how I was presenting myself before, but never fear, it is I, Osmo Begamo, Dean of Conjuration here at Vemay Teldt Royal Academy of the Metaphysical Arts. And I have a proper class all prepared, but I want to just get the initial reactions out of the way first. And thank you, Dagger. I am quite fond of the look myself. You know, I am the sort of getting ahead of things, but a nickname that we came up with to refer to me, because Aster Gardenia is not terribly familiar with the name Osmo Begamo, and has been calling me the alternate version of herself who woke up in the feywild. Oh my goodness, and we have a raid! You all have wonderful timing. Look, I can even wave at you. Not that one. Not this one. Yes. Yes, I'm waving. Isn't technology and a second raid, I assume you came with the first. That does help. Thank you all. Welcome all of you. Due to the toggle situation, yes, thank you very much for doing the shout outs. Sparky and Red Mage, how are you both? You have perfect timing. We have literally just begun my class. I suppose I should introduce the usual streamer here, as well as myself. This stream belongs to Aster Gardenia, who I'll just get a bit ahead of things. Looks like this, but I am sort of co-opting her stream today. I am Orchid, otherwise known as Professor Osmo Begamo, a conjuration wizard who, for reasons we will get into in the lore PowerPoint I'm about to hold, bears a striking resemblance to our, mutual cohort, Aster Gardenia. This is a family-friendly stream for anyone who is looking for something of the sort. Aster Gardenia on her channel does quite a bit of, art and roguelikes, indie games, retro games. We will do a bit of retro gaming after the lore PowerPoint. We will be playing Graffiti Kingdom, originally for the PlayStation 2. But, I hope you all enjoy your stay. Feel free to, take a seat wherever you like and take out your notes. And fortunately, I will be recapping a decent amount of previous lore, so hopefully it shouldn't be too difficult to follow. I am an educator after all, so there is, in fact, something going on with the Fae. I am from the Feywild, and so we can see here Aster Gardenia's casket, from which she emerged from her, well, in your universe, she emerged from her magical sleep, and in mine where she did not. But as you can see, this looks a little bit different from the garden that, Aster Gardenia and Wildflowers the Bunny are, I'm forgetting my words. I'm so flustered from the raids. Thank you again for that. Stewards of, because we are in the Feywild. And yes, I suppose before I get into the proper PowerPoint, I am extremely glad to be here, and thank you again, Wildflowers, for shouting out our raiders. I really do appreciate that. I appreciate all the help you have given me. I will lead off with saying this PNG tuber is courtesy of Wildflowers the Bunny. She is actually selling these. You can commission her for it for only $40, which is strikingly low in my humble opinion. But here's a link for that. But yes, the story behind this stream, well, first off, it is meant to be my 3rd anniversary. My 1st anniversary, I could even skip ahead a bit to the PowerPoint. Let us bit of this, and we'll skip ahead to this slide. I originally had my first, yes, thank you, I am fond of it. This banner here was for my first stream. It was held April 1st of 2024. I had met Knight Gardenia of your universe, a few months before that, and we had collaborated to surprise everyone. I did intend for this stream to be on the same day, April 1st, but those of you who have been attending Knight Gardenia's streams lately would know that her mouth was quite injured up until very recently. She has actually been working very hard to recover so that she would be able to perform the verbal components of the Clairsperience ritual taught to me by a VTuber. Some of you long-time viewers may be familiar with the Professor Osmo Begamo, who I used to bear a resemblance to. You can see the 3D model I was using at the time, and I was in the process of having a new model prepared last year during Knight Gardenia's birthday stream. She announced it with a custom graphic and everything, but unfortunately, that fell through, and it felt that I simply would not be able to present this new form to you all for quite some time. But it was around that time, actually, that Wildflowers the Bunny was having a revival. Happy Easter, everyone. And Knight Gardenia, actually, when I was confiding with her about my frustrations, suggested to me that Wildflowers would be able to assist me, and she did just that. So I'm very happy with the model that she has made for me, and as I showed before, there is one in progress for Knight Gardenia as well, which, yes, you are. Which Knight Gardenia says will be very helpful for doing streams with more intensive games that her regular model may lag during. She has recently been streaming a lot with just a static image due to playing games that are more computationally intensive, and due to her injuries not making her really want to emote as dramatically for the sake of being picked up by a model. And so a model like this, which does not require a camera, but still has all these expressions and poses. Let me straight. We get arms are down. I can also take on and off my glasses. Um, Look at us, so matchy. Yes, it will be very useful, and both of us are very grateful to you, Wildflower. And I am extremely pleased to, even if it is a bit belated, due both to Knight Gardenia's injuries and well, I thought I was on time, but there is a time works differently between the Feywild and the material plane, and it turns out for me right now it is April 1st, but I believe, yes, for you it is Easter. So I suppose this is a bit of a revival for myself, though that might be a bit sacrilegious, so we're not really going with that. But yes, Rebby, it seems you have an understanding of how the Feywild works. It is good to have you in the classroom. But yes, it is. Knight Gardenia overcame many struggles and injuries in order to be able to perform the Clairsperience ritual, which is a combination of conjuration and divination to allow you all in Knight Gardenia's universe to see into mine so that I may teach a class for you. Speaking of, perhaps we can get into it now. Hopefully everyone has taken their seats, has their notes out. You're a changeling! Well, I think this might not be too much of a surprise given some of what I've already said, but I am also a changeling. So it appears we have much in common, and I mean, I know no two people, given a same race or homeland or vocation or anything else, will see the world the same way. So, and many changelings have different ways of going about how to use our abilities and such. So I would love to hear more about your perspective and how you choose to use the gifts that we have, because I have quite a bit of thoughts of them myself. But perhaps we can get into that. Getting ahead. There we go. Get into that more formally via the prepared PowerPoint. Yes. Also, there is a redeem in the chat called Legend Lore, which you can use to ask questions. I will not be answering them until the, questions period at the end, and then I will continue to answer them through the rest of the stream. But if you ask a question and I do not acknowledge it immediately, know that it is only for the sake of making sure that the lecture remains on course, and your questions are appreciated and will be answered. But if you want to, yes, and there is my familiar. If you want to ensure that I definitely get back to your question, using the legend lore redeem will make sure that it is prepared in the list for me, or you can simply ask it again once we. I know it is a amount of swords of channel points that some of the raiders may not have, and you may, as perhaps being newer students of mine, have more questions. So please do not let it stop you. And thank you very much for the follow. I will warn that I am not the usual streamer. This does normally belong to Knight Gardenia, but I think if you enjoy my presentation, you will also likely enjoy Knight Gardenia's streams. They are often less formal than this, but they are good fun, and she is a lovely individual. And I see your question, Wildflowers, and because it is using the redeem, I have the excellent excuse to simply ignore it for now. I do have a slide dedicated to the ore, because what sort of review would it be if I did not touch on why everyone is so very, very, adamant about consuming it. But yes, let us get into our presentation today. Again, I am Osmo Orchid Bergamo, Dean of Conjuration here at Vemay Teldt Royal Academy of the Metaphysical Arts, and this is my 3rd anniversary re-debut, because there will be some things changing. The structure of this lesson today, we will start with a course review where I will recap our previous lessons. I have previously had 4 classes, more like 3.5, but regardless, they have been scattered across the last 2 years or so, so memories may be a bit fuzzy, many people might be new, and I want to allow you to catch up. Now, it won't be extremely in-depth, but 2 of my previous streams are on Night Gardenia's YouTube channel, with timestamps for every subject that should make it easy to do your own review. I do also have a Tumblr, Osmo Begamo, so you can also, there are some written reviews posted there. But yes, I will be reviewing some of what we have covered in the previous courses, and then I will be discussing changes coming to my future lessons, which I've already, as you've seen, changed my presentation quite a bit, and I will also be changing future streams I might have in collaboration with Night Gardenia. I will then, in light of those changes, reintroduce myself. I have already given away some of the new information, the pulling away of the curtain, as you will, but we will, I suppose, do it in a more structured way, recap it all. And thank you, Comic. And then I will have a bit of a lecture on my topic of expertise, which is, again, conjuration, but specifically planar and multi-dimensional travel, without which we would not be having this class clairsperience, nor would I have been able to meet Night Gardenia or Wildflowers the Bunny, for that matter, at all. So it is a topic that I've been focusing very much on, especially since joining the faculty here at Vemay Teldt in the last couple years. And so I would like to share with you some of my thoughts on that. Then I will share those who contributed to this presentation and this stream being possible, and questions, and then we will apply some conjuration and my own perspective on walking in people's shoes to get a better understanding of their experiences, perspectives, and abilities through the game we've played twice previously in my class's Graffiti Kingdom, which will also allow you to use the redeem conjure creature that where I will draw a creature in the game for us to become. Now, I would recommend not redeeming that until we start the gameplay, in case you are no longer here when it is time to play. It will just ensure that your points are put to use and that you have the input that you want to have. All right, then, let us begin our review. So, as I said before, my first stream here on Night Gardenia's channel was a bit of a mysterious reveal using this banner. A trick of the light or a new perspective, someone familiar but new. It was held on April 1st, 2024. Oh yes, Graffiti Kingdom is a very wonderful game. But yes, Night Gardenia said at the time that she was loaning her stream to a friend who wanted to try VTubing, and that friend was me. I was at the time, portraying myself, presenting myself in a way that I thought was most fitting for a professor of conjuration, a form that strongly resembles a now sadly absent VTuber named Osmo Begamo, who many in my classroom were quite familiar with, and who was an inspiration to me and into the new course I took. And I think we've had quite a bit of fun there, though, again, once Professor Bergamot was no longer teaching his classes, me using such a similar form did cause many of his former students to feel quite lonely and sad, which was, well, not something I wanted to do to my students, which is part of the reason that I have taken on this new form. Now, as for, Vemay Teldt and my relation to Night Gardenia, and here is a picture of Night Gardenia in the robes. Again, we do not have access to the hat. She drew herself in Professor Bergamot's hat, but she did not give it to me because she does not have it, and I do not have it, which is why I was, as Professor Bergamot pointed out to me, a wizard who did not wear a wizard hat. In my universe, it is significantly less common for wizards to wear hats, but regardless, she did have this robe, which she gave to me as a way for us to differentiate ourselves when I was using her form at the time. We will get to that. But yes, I work at Vemay Teldt, which is the capital city of Myorma. Now, I'm not going to completely recap Night Gardenia's lore. She does have a lore video on her YouTube as well, but Night Gardenia originates from what she calls an old-timey kingdom. A kingdom that existed in both your universe and mine several centuries ago, a place called Viatorum. Myorma is the nation that conquered Viatorum, which was in fact the event that caused Night Gardenia to be sealed away in the glass casket, where she remained in magical sleep for those many centuries before, in your universe, waking up in Wildflowers the Bunny's garden, and in my universe, wound up in the Feywild, where I encountered her. My universe's version of her, who remains asleep, that is. So, I do live in a universe I've seen what has become of her home, and, the land that once was Viatorum existed in where we now see the woods of Drawfiel and the city of Crossroads. And the woods of Drawfiel also contains a fairly regular, reoccurring Fey crossing, which is how I made my way to Vemay Teldt, and a Fey crossing I use to go back and forth between the planes quite frequently. Now, this Fey crossing, which perhaps did not exist in Night Gardenia's universe, or perhaps it did but was less powerful, or things simply worked differently, a single flap of a butterfly's wings and all that, but it is the belief in the kingdom of Myorma that the Fey crossing is a side effect of the amount of mining and work with Myorma's primary resource, arcane ore. Now, arcane ore is a very popular subject of discussion in my classroom, despite my best efforts to dissuade the class from fixating on it. My, I guess, 2.5 stream was dedicated to giving my class a alternate outlet for their dangerous craving. Arcane ore is a highly dangerous, unstable, and regulated substance of Miorma. It is solidified magical potential. It is like spell slots in mineral form. It can only be mined or handled by those who have gone through rigorous testing and background screening and work directly for the crown of Miorma. But it is a substance that has allowed Miorma to become as powerful as it is and take over many smaller kingdoms, such as Night Gardenia's homeland of Viatorum. It is not safe for eating, and I was put in the interesting position of emulating Miorma's very lawful, strict sort of essence in order to discourage my classroom from not consuming the crunchy rock. And so I held in the past a cooking stream where I attempted to create a mundane equivalent that could satisfy all of your cravings. And I did prepare some timestamps on the full VOD is available again on Night Gardenia's channel, but I thought that stream was actually at a very different time from all of my other streams. So I think many have perhaps missed it, and I meant to make a recap of this stream, and one thing I've managed to inherit from the one I took inspiration from is a lack of appearances. So I have not been able to write that recap, but I think this should give you all the general idea. Let's take about 3 minutes, I think, to relive what I went through for all of you. And I'm actually adding, like I say, I walk in a lot of people's footsteps, learning as a new faculty, but I like to put my own spin on things, so this isn't normally part of the ritual, but I'm enhancing it. As I said, the plane is to have a place for magic to flow, but flow itself is a stream, and so we have this juicy drop sour candy. I'm just going to put a smattering there to allow the mana to flow. That should be enough, I hope. And then we require magic. I think this is the one. I'm not sure the exact amount to put, so like the arcane ore, it is volatile and crunchy, but I know one of the reasons you all want to eat arcane ore so badly is the crunch. And so now we do the horrible part. Pickle. Oh, it's fizzling. And then we wrap it up. Yes, what's all this? Very audibly. Reliving my nightmares. This is the problem with our plane. It's not quite enough to get around the pickle. I needed to recreate the horror and unpleasantness you wanted to subject yourselves to. So, here's our gross eldritch abomination arcane ore. Can you hear it? It's popping. And, so there are, I mentioned before, multiple saving throws. The first is, a wisdom saving throw to even bite into this thing. And then the second is the constitution saving throw. So, let's see how I roll, shall we? And for the sake of anyone who is squeamish, we will stop it there. Again, the full video is available on Night Gardenia's YouTube channel if you would like to see my reaction to consuming it. And I do hope to write up a written recipe you can more easily reference and share, but I cannot do that. And during that brief video review of my 2.5 class, we got a few more students. So hello, Reversed Cards, the Sharky Emmy. Feel free to pull out a seat and sit wherever you like. Welcome to my my 3rd anniversary class. I'm sure you will have a lot of questions about my new appearance, but fortunately, we will be discussing that in this presentation. I've just been recapping the previous classes that I have given on Night Gardenia's channel. Yes, I have changed things a bit, Rev. We will continue. No, don't play. Oh my goodness, I forgot that this cut to this slide so quickly. Yes, one of the changes, the changes that I alluded to is I am retiring from Vemay Teldt Metaphysical Academy of the Metaphysical Arts. There are several reasons for this, some of which I discussed before, but just to list them all in one place. I suppose one that might be very relevant now, I did on my Tumblr make some comments about losing my teaching license because my students wanted to eat protected substances. That did not happen. I'm not in trouble with everyone, despite Professor Johan's best attempts. And never fear, I'm retiring from teaching, not from appearing for all of you on these streams. This is not the last you will see of me. But I have been, for the last 3 years or so, been working as the Dean of Conjuration at the school, and I was doing so in a temporary capacity. This was always the plan. I was taking the place of the former / returning conjuration professor, Professor Keek, who was doing a bit of travel, as conjurers tend to do. But he has returned from his visit home and is ready to take back his courses, and I likewise am ready to explore new avenues. I very frequently like to change the path that I am exploring. In my first stream, I discussed quite a bit my philosophy around conjuration and why it was something that I felt strongly about, being able to, through both teleportation and summoning, being able to meet people you could never normally meet, or to travel places you couldn't normally go, to expose yourself to more perspectives, to more paths, to more latent abilities, that can only be reached through, that you may not reach simply by going through a singular lifetime. There's only so many places you can go, so many people you can see by staying in one place. And so traveling further and even summoning forth those from far away allow you access to many more possibilities and allow you to grow yourself, or myself in this case. Avenues. As a changeling, I cannot wild shape like a druid. I suppose I could dip a bit into transmutation and try being a shark, but then I suppose I haven't tried it and I could consider it. I could also become a sea elf, but I wouldn't get the racial features, so I would need to cast some. Again, this is one of the most wonderful things about magic. Being able to have access to water breathing and things of such things. Normally I wouldn't be able to survive, let alone experience and be enriched by the perspectives and habitants of underwater places like your Atlantis, Miss Emmy. But thanks to my explorations in magic, that is a possibility available. To stay on topic though, so I'm ready to move on from teaching. There are parts of it I have enjoyed, and there are they are things that, I only add on to what I already was, already knew, already believed, and I will carry all of that with me into my next path. But there are other aspects of teaching at Vemay Teldt that were more at odds with me. I do like to, properly embody a role I take on, but I don't do so at the expense of who I already am. I do not put on an act. I participate in any role I take on very sincerely, and Miorma, though very accessible from my Fey crossing, is a very lawful place, very strict on rules and laws, and I've had to embody that a bit. Even just teaching generally. If I were to teach anywhere, I'd still need to hold people to deadlines and grades. I'd need to evaluate them on set rubrics. In the case of teaching here, I was inheriting much of Professor Keek's curriculums, and I did adapt them to my own teaching style, but there was a lot less chaos than I'm used to, and I did often find myself wondering, why am I acting like this? This isn't me. So I have sort of been ready to try out something new for a bit. Again, not a bad experience at all, but one that isn't entirely me, and that is all right. I am a bit of everything I have been and everything I will continue to be. And as I said before, well, I suppose less about retiring as a teacher, but taking on this new form. I mean, I was always going to take on a new form once I retired from teaching, because I will be becoming something new. But there was the fact that when I taught my classes as Professor Osmo Begamo, Professor Bergamot's old pupils felt very lonely and sad, and that made me sad too. That I don't normally take the form of people who are accessible, or take that form in front of people who are familiar with whoever I am taking inspiration from. When I was taking Knight Gardenia's form, I did not have any access to a conscious Knight Gardenia. She was simply a mysterious and magically very unconscious woman in a casket who I wondered about and had no way of inquiring about her circumstances, how she came to be like how I found her, and so my only way of potentially answering those questions was to take on her form, step into her shoes, and try to see what her life might have been like by living it myself. And then, through my divinations into figuring out more about her so that I could embody that role more perfectly, and through her own conjuration lessons with Professor Bergamot and her attempts at planar travel, we met. And I am getting a little bit into who I am in my relationship to Night Gardenia, so we can go over here. But when I encountered her, again, it caused her to assume that I was an alternate universe version of herself, and she was very excited about that. I meant to be playing throughout this presentation. I'm so sorry. Never mind. But she was very excited about that because she found me looking exactly like her, and I told her the truth. Some members of the class who are not in the classroom right now have been very suspicious of me for allowing Night Gardenia to continue to believe that I am an alternate universe version of herself rather than a changeling who found her asleep and took on her form, but we'll get to that. But she was very, very excited, and I did not want to ruin her fun, and I wanted to continue conversing with her, and so nonetheless, after she left, I did take on the new form of Professor Osmo Begamo. Also because, now having the ability to answer my questions in regards to her, and being very, very curious of the means with which she reached me, and exploring those avenues, I called in an old favor from my friend at the Crown, and became the Dean of Conjuration in order to deepen my studies and get funding for my research. So with all that sort of recontextualized, sorry, taking a drink. You can now call me Orchid. This was a name that I did suggest at my last stream as a sort of way. This is a name that Night Gardenia has already been referring to me as a way to differentiate her and myself. But this is now the name I will be using for who I plan to be for the foreseeable future, which is the changeling you see before you. I am fine with going with any previous names or pronouns I've previously gone by. I do prefer not to mix them, because keeping them separate is part of keeping them all sincere. And thank you, Dagger Gun. I would say those two are unrelated, Miss Emmy. I will be trying to keep questions for the end of the PowerPoint, but the short answer is no. Changelings would, at least in my universe, it may be different in yours, but if they would be associated with any sort of deities, they would be deities of the feywild, or the one that many of us follow or feel a sort of tie to is the Traveler, which I am a fan of the Traveler, as well as Oberon and Tatiana to guide me in my fey travels. I'm not terribly religious, though. But yes, sort of reintroducing myself not as your professor, but as Oh, yes, it is nice when people grant you new names. Names are themselves very fascinating. I tend to have to give myself them as part of taking on a new role, which, serves to obfuscate a particular true name, which are dangerous things. But the name I would like to be referred to now is Orchid, which serves as, I think, a fitting parallel to Aster also being a flower, and Orchid also being such as an orchid mantis, a sort of pink and lovely master of disguise and imitation. But yes, I am a changeling. I am comfortable with any pronouns. I have sort of been cycling back and forth. As a noble, I was male. As a knight, I was female. And as a professor, I was male again. But I have used basically all of the standard ones. And, if you want to use something fun, I won't stop. Yes, see, Rebby, you do seem to understand. The shared perspective really does allow those sorts of insights to come more easily. Despite my changing my primary name, I am not changing my Tumblr handle. I will remain Osmo Begamo as a token of how we were introduced, and just to keep things consistent, keep previous VODs accurate, all of that. And this form I have, this is the reference. It is a form that I have sort of come up with in order to portray this new role I am filling. It is a combination of Night Gardenia and Cosmo Bergamot, or Osmo Begamo. A combination of sort of the things I have been to you in the past, with a bit of fey flair and more obvious changeling like coloring in the hair and skin. But I hope it properly demonstrates, portrays who I am trying to be in this moment, and also it is fun. I think it's fun. And I'm very grateful to Wildflowers for bringing this design to life. I'm quite happy with my ability to bounce and to take off and on my glasses. But this is the new me, and rather than, I am fine continuing to tutor all of you. I am still very interested in conjuration, because again, that was not simply something I was pretending to care about in order to imitate a professor. That is a sincere pursuit that I wanted to pursue to the fullest by dressing for the part. It was just as being a knight was something I was sincerely interested in. So I will continue to be performing magic and be the more magical of Night Gardenia and I. Yes, thank you. Now, changelings can't fly, sadly, but, little fairy wing type feeling. And yes, the coattails are a bit like flower petals with the little leaves underneath. Yes, you understand. You are picking up what I am putting down. And I believe this leads us to our final topic, which is multiplanar interactions and what it means to be parallel. Sorry for all the exploding flower petals sort of covering up the text. But so in the past, I allowed Night Gardenia to continue to believe that I was the alternate version of herself, alternate universe version of herself. And I, at the time, simply wanted to not ruin her fun and also maintain rapport between us and access to her and discussion with her. But over time, I've come to believe, me out, that this is not actually a misunderstanding. That I've not been as misleading as even I first assumed that I was. But in order to defend this stance, we must first talk about what it means to be parallel. Mathematically, for instance, two parallel lines or parallel equations values are two lines that will never ever cross. That normally does correspond to universes, because if every universe only has one of you, then you can never meet an alternate version of yourself. Except for cloning some such, if you choose to believe that would be equitable. But generally, by being separated by universes, then even with planar travel, you will never cross paths. But Knight Gardenia and I obviously have. However, I don't think that is the sort of parallel we want to focus on. 1 second while I take a drink. So, from there, I started thinking about narrative parallels. In a narrative, you could, for instance, you could have two characters who are foils to each other, or stories that contrast each other, and learn about the individual stories or characters by how they approach the same situation in different ways. And hello, Professor! Feel free to pull out a seat and sit wherever you like. I appreciate your enthusiasm, Godflowers. In this case, two characters or stories that are parallel would be ones that, while the characters or stories may not exactly be the same, they are similar enough that they serve to prove the similarities between the two whenever they weave together, or to show how one person might act if they were in a different situation by putting a very similar person in that different situation. And yet, things will prove time and time again that at their core, they are the same. Now, you may say, Orchid, you and Knight Gardenia are not the same. You have demonstrated this very much by detailing how this all came to be, but I am going to disagree with, because... So, me and Knight Gardenia Knight Gardenia lived as a knight in Viatorum many centuries ago. Viatorum was invaded by Miorma, and Knight Gardenia's sovereigns, who she served, gave her their magical ritual to put her in a magic sleep. They put her in a glass casket. In her universe, that glass casket ended up in the Garden of Wildflowers the Bunny, where she awoke and became the streamer you know today. And in my universe, her casket landed in the Feywild, where I found her still unconscious, became curious, and started walking in her shoes. Different stories, different origin, and yet, in the time between me becoming Knight Gardenia and meeting your universe's version of her, at this point I am only doing my best to emulate what I think she might be like. I've not met her, I cannot purposefully imitate her. During that time, I started as a freelance adventurer, warming up my sword skills, doing quests, trying to be noble and honorable and such. And then eventually, once I felt ready, I called upon my friend at the Crown, who allowed me to sign on formally as a Knight of Miorma. And then I served as a Royal Knight, and my duties weren't exactly like hers, but I thought they might have been. And during that time, I met my familiar. And then I met Knight Gardenia, and one thing I learned about her is that she has a cat very similar to my familiar, who again, I did not know she had when I obtained him. Later on, I had met Knight Gardenia. I had switched careers to become a professor at the Wizard Academy. I was going, as part of my research into planar travel and dimensional travel, going back and forth between Miorma and the Feywilds, and somewhere along the way, I obtained a stowaway, a fey cat, which, if you go to that cooking stream VOD, that fey cat I am complaining about constantly, he broke my scrying crystal, he ate my bread, he was nipping at my ankles, very annoying. And it was in the middle of me complaining about this that Knight Gardenia revealed to me that her roommate had a very similar looking cat named Walt. This is a photo of Knight Gardenia's cats, Pierre and Walt. I have not been intentionally trying to follow her exact path since we have met each other. I've in fact intentionally strayed off it. And yet, these important companions in our lives are shared. I believe we are, that Knight Gardenia, when she was practicing conjuration, she was also very excited to meet an alternate universe version of herself, because Professor Bergamot had been traveling to various other universes to introduce various alternate universe versions of himself. And she found this very exciting and kept wondering what sort of alternates of herself there may be. I, meanwhile, was practicing divination, trying to learn more about this mysterious knight in the casket. I was taking the threads of the weave and of the winds of thought and pulling her universe closer to mine so that I could glimpse into it. I think this may have been fate. I think we had a mutual interest that brought our fates together, and we may very well be alternate universe versions of each other in this very indirect, odd way, but suffice it to say, that is why I have not corrected Knight Gardenia's misunderstanding, and after this stream, she will talk about how, oh, ha ha ha, yes, it was actually a stream for my alternate universe self instead of a new model for me, yippee, and you're all going to be cool about it. Because it makes sense. Got it? Got it. Wonderful. So, now that we have covered that, we can get into a question. And also, you can continue asking questions after this point in the slideshow, either by using the Legend Lore Redeem or sending me an ask on Tumblr. Again, that is Osmo Begamo. And we have credits. I'm sorry that some of them are covered by the chat box, but many of these are the same as previous, so overlays by Runic Screen Transitions by Sparky, I assume that's how you pronounce it. Emotes and alerts are myself, the model Wildflowers the Bunny. Music, again, it was in the starting soon screen. I was previously using Professor Bergamot's music, but now I have a song of my own, which I believe Night Gardenia has been teasing, in that she's played it in a few of her streams, but not revealing any of the lyrics, which admittedly I have not finalized and don't exactly go along with the instrumental that Yuki created, but they do exist, and I can share them with you. And then the PowerPoint background is by Tragic Heroine. So, let us look to see what questions we have. And also, now that we are paused, we can play that music. I don't know if that volume is turned. I'm turning it down for myself. Alright. And then we might take a brief break, while I get the game set up. And then we will do some conjuration practice. It looks like Night Gardenia not clear out her stream view. There we go. So, how much ore can a bunny eat? If a bunny eat ore munch, you get one. You can eat arcane ore once, and then you will almost certainly die painfully. Let's once. All right, that's one question answered. Magi Orchid. Interesting title. I'm good with it. Assuming your hypothesis bears fruit, have the beings who've woven themselves into Gardenia's life had their counterparts do the same to you? Well, I mean, I have met you. I've met you here. It is Night Gardenia's versions of you rather than separate ones, but I like to think that the fact that I get to meet you all as well is, you know, perhaps part of that? I can't be certain for sure. No, none of you should or can eat the ore. Do not do it. See, look at this. I had to act lawful. It's terrible. I'm so glad I won't have to do that nearly as much, because I will be conducting my classes from the Feywild instead of Miorma. I'm sure you'll bring it up anyway, and I will continue to tell you it is dangerous, but at least now I won't have to deal with the laws around it. Well, I would say I'm real. I say every version of myself has been real. And I do not believe I am cake. I mean, I practiced the sword in order to imagine what her life is like. So we have both done swordcraft, and then she, independently of my influence before meeting me, got into magic and specifically conjuration, which I have long been a fan of. So yes, I would say so. I am a bit more magically inclined than her. We do also, even before encountering Night Gardenia, I had quite a bit of noble experience. Though it was different than hers, but still the etiquettes and such. And we do also, I mean, she lived in Viatorum, I live in I've spent a fair amount of time in the nation that took Viatorum over, but we do share a bit of background in terms of location. Again, it's nothing exact, but I'd like to think there's some sense to it. And at sounds fun, isn't it? It's very fun for her. It's been very fun for me. And I don't know how long I'm simply going to be myself. I'm always myself with whatever forms I take, whatever paths I choose to walk. I walk them as myself, because if I wasn't being sincere, then how could I truly experience it properly? But it's not often I present myself as the changeling who has been these other things. So this is a new experience in its own right, and it's an unusual one, but for the purposes of this classroom that does sort of exist between the two dimensions, it feels like a good place to do that. And, you know, it's good between different explorations to reflect on your experiences, and I think this will be a good way to do that as well. So, I'm excited for it. I'm sure there will be other things I decide to become in the future. I don't know yet what they'll be. It'll be very spontaneous if history proves anything. Most of mine have been quite spontaneous. Well, you may have during my first debut. I also know Night Gardenia finds your questions and Todd to be quite endearing, and does very much like to talk about her friend. So, it's possible my memories are getting mixed up with what she has told me. Yes, there's no harm in asking again, especially since everyone is always changing, and I perhaps especially so. Let us see. And after this question, I think we will perhaps take a 5-minute break. A good time to stretch, have a snack, medications, a drink. I will refill my beverage and add more ice to it. And then we will do some proper conjuring and taking on many different forms in Graffiti Kingdom. But first, if I were to get mugged by an orange, would I peel and eat it, run, get mugged, or call the banana and apple to stop the mugging? I mean, peeling and eating it seems a bit barbaric, since it's sentient enough to mug me in the first place. I mean, running sounds a bit fun, especially since I'm quite good at teleportation. I would like to see how well an orange can give chase. You know, what must life be like for a sentient orange? It's hard for me to imagine without trying it myself. So perhaps what I'd do is I would run, teleport myself to the top of something to get a vantage point, watch how it chases, and then perhaps become an orange myself and do a bit of running. Yes, students can be quite destructive. That is one thing I've definitely learned as a teacher. Goodness, so we're both changelings and both professors. I mean, I guess now formally for myself, but we do have quite a bit in common, don't we? Well, we will have that break, which I just realized I'm going to pause the music I'm playing to then play the exactly same song, but it is actually part of the OBS. But yes, I will see you in 5 minutes. And I do not know how long we will play. As long as possible, I think. But yes, see you then.